ask us a question, ask us to share with a partner, whatever you want us to do. Try to
Okay.
make it as realistic as possible. And you can tell us what kind of coaches you want us to be. If you want to pretend that you're at like a basketball workshop or soccer or whatever, or you just want us to be multiple, sports, it's totally up to you. It's your call.
All right. All right. Let's get started. We're going to be just all coaches.
Okay.
Just
And what just
generic.
a quick introduction, just so we all know who you are, and then you can just go at transition, assuming that we've already done E-Tank and Elm Street Mastery, and you can just transition right in.
Okay. So what I would like to do, I'll also do the sign in. Did you want me to do that intro?
No, you don't have to do that.
I don't?
Nope, you've already done that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, and then you can maybe do your intro like you would intro to the workshop, just so we know a little bit about you while you're here, and then jump right into honoring the game.
All right.
Whenever you're ready, go for it.
Yes, ma'am. Boom. All right. All right. Let's begin. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to be here. My name is Shay Wilson, and I'm here representing PCA, Positive Coaching Alliance, and I'm absolutely excited to be your facilitator for this afternoon. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I have been an athlete all of my life. I played Division I basketball, and I've also played women's tackle football in the Independent Women's Football League. And I absolutely love teaching youth, being around youth, and helping and mentoring coaches to be the best that we can be. I have a saying that says iron sharpens iron. And so just growing. So PCA follows right in alignment with all of those things. And I absolutely love the culture that PCA is developing. So let's dive deep into the third principle of honoring the game. Okay. All right. So honoring the game begins with the acronym ROOTS. So, funny fact, I did look up what all has roots. So, let me tell you something. When you think of the word roots, the acronym ROOTS, what comes up for you? What has roots? Anyone? Anyone want to jump in and just throw out a word that has roots?
Trees.
Trees. All right. Anyone else?
Plants.
Plants. Awesome. Awesome. Anyone else?
How about family?
Family root. Oh, you went deep, Cal.
And I did.
Look, T, root canal.
Oh, gosh.
I know, right? But those are awesome. I just saw mountains. Did you know that? I Googled that. It was really interesting. But the idea of roots and standing strong and deep was PCA's model. And I love that coaching model with honoring the game, that it begins and ends with roots. So let's look at the first letter, R. As PCA coaches, we want to create a culture that honors and respects the rules of the game. What does rules do for us? I know they can be a big problem sometimes for some of us, but rules help us to develop and play a fair game. They develop for us to have a fair game. They help us to play the game the way it's supposed to be played, not just make up rules as we go. You know, I used to play spades with my family, and many times the rules were always deviated. What rule was that? Where did that come from? And so it always made for a lot of confusion, to say the least, in the game. But in this, rules are meant to help us to play the game the way it was supposed to be played. Can you help me, anyone, as we're all sitting out here and we're looking at me? I want you to just kind of think about how we can help our players develop a respect for the rules of the game.
By going over the rules with them prior to games and practices.
Yes, thank you, Eric. That's absolutely true. Absolutely. Thank you. Anyone else?
I have one. So I went from coaching high school lacrosse down to coaching third graders in lacrosse. And I forgot that they actually didn't know the rules. So we had a rule of the day. So every day for like the first 2 weeks of practice, we just picked one rule, and it could have been as simple as you're not allowed to hit other people with the stick. And that whole day we just focused on not hitting each other. So I just had to, at that age, we just picked a rule each day. So they understood it, what it meant.
I love that. That's absolutely awesome. One of the things I remember when I was coaching my 8 and under boys basketball team, Team Lion Chasers. was that the rules, I had 11 boys on my team, and they really didn't have much experience. But the rule was everyone got to play equal time. Simple rule. Fair rule. However, in the league that we played against, it was super competitive. So they either had only 7 or 8 players on their team, or they had a big team, but some days that when they were having a tough game, the lesser experienced players didn't show up, or they just didn't play them. Well, I took it upon myself to make sure, first of all, it's because it was to honor the rules, that each and every one of my boys played the time that they were supposed to play. And because I wanted to make sure that they developed their skills, and also that they developed confidence. And whether we won or lost didn't matter at that point. It was the smiles and the effort that they gave, just because they knew that they were going to play. They weren't going to be sat on the side and just say, okay, well, you're not going to play today. So I love the fact that as PCA coaches, we're going to create a culture that honors the rules. The next letter is O, and O is for opponents. Yeah, I know. Do we often think of opponents as gifts? Not many times. What is the language that we use for our opponents? Can anybody give me some of the language that we use when we think about going into a game and we're going to go against this team, and we have this warlike language and they're the enemy? Can anyone give me some other things that we say about our opponents?
We're going to beat them up, spit them out, chew them up.
Oh, yeah, we're going to smash them. We're going to – what else? What else do we say?
Yeah, demolish them, us them.
Yeah, we're going to step on their neck. We're going to crush them. I think about that as I look back over the years when I was playing myself, and all the language that we used. We never looked at our opponents as a gift. But in all honesty, they are gifts. It keeps us from having to play. It gives us a worthy opponent, and it keeps us from having to just play ourselves. And it allows us to be able to measure our improvement against a worthy opponent. So we really want to create a culture that looks upon our opponents as gifts. Honoring our opponents. So the next O is for officials. We want, as PCA coaches, double goal coaches, we want to create a culture that respects our officials. Now, in all honesty, our officials are not really respected at all. I feel for them most of the time, because they really are not looked upon as important as they really are. In all levels, our officials are really treated poorly. But I think that if we can teach, just like in life, that we can have a disagreement without disrespecting each other, that goes a long way. So when we look at our officials, how would we do, and does it look like for you? I like to say, what does it look like to you to be respectful to an official? Anyone?
I think if you disagree with a call that they say, rather than like screaming at them, to maybe wait for a timeout or wait for halftime or after the game, I guess not after the game, and just pull them aside and say, hey, I have a question for you about that call you made, just so I could clarify it with my team, or I was a little bit confused on that call. Can you explain that to me?
I love that. Thank you. That's awesome. Awesome idea. Awesome suggestion. Anyone else? That's really great. Thank you for sharing.
I think one thing I do is I actually get the name of the official, their first and last name, prior to the game, so that if I need to ask for clarification on something, I can use their name. I think some coaches just, I've heard coaches say, hey, Stripes, and, or hey, ref. And I think in order to get a good response from a referee, you kind of have to bridge that connection. And so for me, I ask them their first name, and when I need to clarify something, I use their first name, and it helps us build a relationship. And after a few games, I know the same refs. So, and they appreciate that I'm not going to scream at them, that I just want to understand where their mindset's at so I can help our players play better.
Awesome answer. Thank you very much for sharing, Eric. That's absolutely awesome. I think that is absolutely in line with what we're trying to do as PCA coaches. Develop a mutual respect, where we have to remember they're human too. But I often think about when we talk about being disrespectful with someone that we disagree with, we can look at our spouses or our employers, our employees, or someone. We can't always practice being disrespectful to someone that we disagree with. So we're talking about life lessons, and so I think that's absolutely. Thank you, coaches, for sharing. That's absolutely the truth. So the next on our roots. Wait. Fun fact right here. In Texas, did you know that the white oak trees, their roots go 10 feet deep? Oh yeah, I've been Googling. And yep, everything's bigger in Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas. I just want to throw that out there so you guys will know that. You can use that. My permission. I'm just teasing.
I'm gonna work that in.
Guys, so let's look at the team roots. The roots as a PCA coach, double goal coach. We want to create a culture where we respect our teammates. That looks like not embarrassing our team. Now that doesn't mean that we always like our teammates. I mean, how many of us have been on a team where everyone liked each other? We always hung out together. We just loved each other and adored each other. Yeah, if you were blessed to have that kind of team somewhere in your life, that's great. But most of the time, there were always a little bit of difficulty. There was always some personality conflicts, and it's very hard when competition is in the mix, because you may be competing against someone else, and that always brings up a lot of emotion if you're not used to doing that on a regular basis and you don't have the skills to deal with it. So, as a PCA coach, we want to create a culture where we respect our teammates. So quickly, I would insert a game right here. I'm not sure my time. Yes, I think I'm okay. But I'll move past that. So the last one, we have come to the S. And the S.
Now, what would you, I'd like to hear what you do for your game. What would you do?
Well, I was going to do a game where we learn how to kind of pass the ball, and we talk about what would you do to respect the player. If you could, it's just a kind of thing. I haven't really mastered it yet in doing it. Okay. It is with the ball, and we kind of move each other around, because I would like to have the coaches move around at this point, because we're at the third part of the workshop. Mm-hmm. And so they don't get too bored or just tired of sitting. So far in my part of monitoring the game, I've been kind of talking to them. They kind of still in their seat, moving around. I mean, just they hadn't moved yet. So I would like for them to kind of move around and as coaches, and not get tired of just listening to me.
I like it. That's perfect. That's what we want to hear.
Thank you. So let's get to self. And this is the foundation of it. Respect. As a PCA coach, we want to create a culture of respecting oneself. Now, I have to tell you, respecting ourselves, for me, coming from an environment, you may not even know what that looks like. So as a PCA coach, as a double goal coach, many times we may have to teach this and what that looks like. And it means having standards for ourselves, having setting standards that make us the best version of ourselves. And we can't do any of the other roots without having respect for self. But let me go back just a little bit. Respect for opponents. Fierce and friendly. Can you say that? Fierce and friendly.
Fierce and friendly.
Come on, let me hear you. Fierce and friendly.
Fierce and friendly.
Oh, yeah. I want you to remember that. When we have respect for our opponents, we want to play hard, but we also want to be friendly and respectful afterwards. And I love that part. I forgot that, and that's one of my favorite things. Fierce and friendly. All right, so let's keep moving. Let's go to a scenario. Everybody looks up at the PowerPoint, and if you can all read that with me, it's called bad call. All right, the opposing coach has been riding the rest of the entire game, and it seems to be working. Now, in the final moments of a close game, the official makes a horrible call against your team. What can you do? So let me get two volunteers. One coach on my right side. If you could please, then you will be the coach that's just a regular coach is going to react like most 90% of us coaches do when their call is going against us, and we know that the other coach has gotten to the ref. And then on this side, my left, can I please have a volunteer for someone who's going to respond in a way that a double goal coach, a PCA coach would respond? Okay. So on my right side, I have the normal coach. 95% of the time we respond like this. And then there's the elite coaches, the PCA coaches, and you're going to respond my double goal coach on my left. Can I have any volunteers, please?
I'll be the crazy coach.
Okay. Go right ahead, Kelly. Coach Kelly.
So you just want me to flip out?
I want you to. The referee just made a horrible call against your team, and you know the other coach has kind of gotten under the skin, so he's making a call against your team. How would you respond?
What the heck was that? What were you thinking? Are you blind? That was the first call I've ever seen. Oh my gosh, that's gonna cost us the game. Come on, ref.
I love it. Perfect. That's good. That's good. Yeah, I love that. All right. Coach on this side, thank you so much. My double goal coach, my PCA coach. Who would take that one for me?
Sure, I'll take a swing at it.
All right, come on, Coach Eric.
Hey, sir, would you mind clarifying that call so I can help my teammates or my players adjust in a way that we won't get that call in the future?
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. That's absolutely cool, calm, and collected. As you can tell, when Coach Kelly was upset, if we don't realize the energy that we all shoot with this, it also affects our players. And they look at that and they follow suit pretty soon. I often laugh when my friends say when their kids use a bad word and they wonder, where did that come from? And I always laugh because I'm like, they hear you. So as coaches, it's the same type of thing. Thank you, guys. You may be seated. All right. So we're looking at creating a culture. I've used the word culture on numerous occasions, and culture is simply the way we do things here. And as PCA coaches, double goal coaches, we create our culture by using all the techniques that we've gone through in our other prior to principles. And now, so let's go into a video. Wait, first I want to look at Honoring the Game Toolkit. And in Honoring the Game Toolkit, we've talked about modeling and teaching, honoring the game. We've talked about self-control routines. We've talked about narrated modeling. And if we use our trusty resource, the book, pages 46 to 49, we can look at tools for our parents. We can look at tools that really speaks to double goal, coming to self-control routines, through honoring the game, and through narrated modeling. So let's go to how we create a positive culture. And we have an awesome video, short video, by two-time World Cup champion, Miss Julie Fowler, who's also on the National Advisory Board for PCA, just talking about positive culture.
Okay, we can pretend that played.
We
pretend that played.
Okay, all right. So let's get, can anyone give me some takeaways for, what did you see in that? The takeaways on positive goal. Any takeaways?
Yeah, I like the way she was talking about how it doesn't matter if you're new to the team or if you're the captain of the team, you're going to grab a bag of balls and you're going to help them. And I think that's really, it's kind of strange to hear that at the professional level.
I love that. I love it. Thank you. So that's awesome. Anyone else?
Yeah, I see it. I don't know if you've read the book about the New Zealand rugby team, the All Blacks, but it's all the minor details that contribute to a team's culture. So even the most minute, cleaning a locker room, how you carry yourself when you're in public and in private, those are the type of things I take away. Especially how they help out with the water, and they carry all the soccer balls out every day.
I love that. Thank you so much, coaches. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I look at this, and then we look at the takeaways, and we talk about athletes needing to feel connected. She touched on that. She touched on that the athletes need to believe that they can improve. And we're talking about her. She's at the highest level. And they're still talking about improvement and feeling connected with their teammates in order to be the best that they can be, in order to perform at their highest level. And also just being proud of acting with integrity, of winning the games with the right way, following the rules, carrying yourselves with character and respect. on and off the field, on and off the court. I find it fascinating that you see people on that level that really understand how to be great people. So we talk about in PCA transforming youth sports so that the sport can transform youth. And that's I love that mission statement. And I want you guys to remember that too. Transforming youth sports so that the sport can transform you. So we look at the different things that we leave the toolkit. And there's the E-Tank, there's the L-Trim Mastery, there's Honor the Game. So I want you guys to break off in groups of 3. And let's talk about, answer the question, which tool does your team have the most problems with? So we break off 3, groups of 3, and we're going to answer the question, which tool or which rule does, which part of roots, I'm sorry, does your team have the most problems with? There you go. Yeah, I was like.
Would you say that during this slide right here?
I'm sorry, we're on the toolkit. I was correct. Yeah. So E-Tank, L-Trim Mastery, E-Tank and Honor the Game. Which one of these principles does your team have the most problems with? Okay. Dun, 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 dun. Just have a little time. There you go. And we're back. And so as we look at everything, I hope everything is you're kind of thinking over all these. I hope there's a lot of things that you found that really works for you. But one of the things that we want to most definitely leave with you that is the most effective is the increase of positive, the 5-to-1 ratio of positives to negatives. As a coach, if you want to create a culture that absolutely helps your players improve the most in not only as their character, but also skill development, it would be the 5-to-1 ratio. Okay? The 5-to-1. I can leave anything with you. Take that with you. Okay, so we have a number of resources for you. We don't want to leave you hanging from this workshop. We really appreciate all of your participation, your moving around, all your suggestions. That helps us create better workshops, as well as hopefully you're getting things out of this as a PCA double goal coach. We use our resources, so use the resource in your book. This book is absolutely priceless. It's small but mighty. It has a lot of things in here that you can use, from more tools, different reminders of how to be a coach. Also, if you look at our other resources, so there's talking points on a weekly basis that you can look at. And also check out our PCA devzone.org. It can answer all the number of questions that may come up for you during the season. I know that it can really help you. It really helps me as I go back and look through different things. Last but not least, thank you for your commitment. We are committed to excellence. We're committed to being the best that we can be. I want to represent PCA to the best of my ability and the standards that they set for us. And so please, if you look at the back of the book on page 71, could you please tear out that perforated sheet and fill that out? I mean, there was a time I did not like criticism. I still don't. I'm just teasing. However, please fill this out. I want to be better and improve. If you fill this out, it really helps me tremendously. Again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your time. Have an awesome, awesome season. Good luck.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Take a breath. Take a breath. So that's the end of the workshop. So how did you feel doing that one?
That was much better. I had a better grasp of it, of using the slides and stuff. It's kind of because I'm looking at the slides on here and then looking here the first 2 times, and now I got a lot better as I practice it more, speaking it out loud. I was reading it before, but speaking it and then trying to implement the stories in a timely basis. I found that that was a struggle when I started speaking it out loud, because I do a lot of things I just talk. But making sure that it is, now that I'm getting more of a grasp of the slides and this, it kind of helped me a lot. I practiced a lot more this time to make sure that I improved at least the effort, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I have some feedback for you, but let me see. I don't know that has Joe ever been on before when you did a demo?
No.
Okay. So Joe, is this your first time seeing Shay? I don't know if he can unmute and hear us. He said he was having some audio trouble with his phone. I'm going to see if he unmutes. Okay. I guess he's not unmuting. All right. He's not unmuting. Oh, there he is. Can we hear you, Joe?
Hear me? You there? Did you get me there?
Hello.
I mean, sorry about that. That's why I'm laying out on the comments. It is the first time. Thanks. And great job, Shay.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
All right. Did you have anything else you wanted to share with Shay, Joe? Guess not. All right. And I think Trinus is at a meeting. He was just going to be listening in. So I don't know if he's going to be able to give you some feedback. But Eric, let's go to you. Put you on the hot seat. This was your first time at a workshop and Shay was your trainer. What is something you really liked about what she did? And then maybe if you have a suggestion for her, since you're going to be doing the same thing in a couple minutes, do you have any suggestions for her?
I love the energy that you brought. You know, I think you really were into the material and you were passionate about it. And then I just thought you were upbeat and it made me want to engage in the conversation. So I thought that was good. I don't really have any suggestions. As I'm going through the same process, the one thing I think is just like you said, as it's tough to get the slides down and have that material come out, but I thought you did a really good job of that. So I'm in your same boat, and I know exactly what you mean when you said that. I was like, oh, this is how I feel a lot of times. So
I'm sending you positive vibes, Eric.
I'm done.
All right, Shay, I definitely think, and I'm glad to say this was your best one that you've done. And I think your energy is such an asset to you. Your whole style, your smile, your energy, your psyche. You just make me laugh. Like you Googled the fact that mountains had roots. I mean, that's part of who you are, and that connects me to you. And that's a lot of fun. And I like the way you gave me a lot of insight into who you are as a coach, just by the way you were communicating this. And that's awesome, because you're walking the walk. You're not just talking about it. So I like a lot of the things that you use. I like a lot of the phrases. You talked about iron sharpens iron before. You have a lot of strong phrases that you can tell you put into the culture of your team. So I would actually use that word, like use the word culture, because we're trying to get coaches to believe in changing their culture and improving their culture. And you obviously have a strong one, and you have things that you believe in strongly. So say, the iron sharpens iron. That's part of my culture. This is something I was trying to work into my team culture. Another little teeny tiny picky thing. So what we usually do is either say you're a positive coach or you're a double goal coach. We don't usually say that you're a PCA coach.
Okay.
It's not that big of a deal. But if Ruben were on this call, he would call you out for that. So I have to channel my inner Ruben and call you out for that.
Thank you. Double goal coach.
Yeah, I mean, you're either a double goal coach or you're being a positive coach. We don't usually say you're a positive coaching alliance coach, like PCA coach, but as I said, being picky. I really like the way, and I remember last time asking you to kind of bring in some more personal stories. I like the way you threw in about your 8 and under boys for rules. I thought that was really good, because that's talking about a rule you have on your team. And as a coach, are you following the rules that you put in place? Tons of coaches out there that say, yeah, everybody gets equal playing time, and then they don't. So I thought that was a good example of how, as a coach, we need to respect the rules. I thought that was good, because there's two different ways to look at this. Sometimes it's, are the players respecting the rules? And the other one is, are the coaches respecting the rules? And I think it's just a little tricky for this to keep them separate and to have the coaches think about that in two different ways. So I thought you did well with that. I liked your phraseology for the opponents. I think that was my favorite one, when you said, any of you think about your opponents as a gift? I think it was kind of cool to have us think about, how do we as coaches what language do we use around opponents? And I mean, right away, I'm thinking smash, kill, and coaches let that happen. Coaches don't, the one cheer for my little 8-year-old girls was like, kill them, smash them, beat them up, blah, blah, blah. This goofy little girly cheer. And okay, good job, good cheer. That's telling them something. And so I thought that was a good point to make. I like that. I like the way that you're very bubbly and upbeat, but when you talked about disrespecting officials, you got serious. And I think that's really good, though. I mean, it's good to your whole emotion changed when you're talking about how disrespected officials are. And that will get your coaches in the room to just kind of lean in. Little subtleties make a big difference. And I always say, like, having a degree in theater is awesome because you can actually, like, I mean, I don't have it. Joe does. But just being able to use your emotion and your language to communicate. I noticed that right away. I thought that was great. Also love the way you appreciate when people share. The more you I mean, you're just like, thank you so much. That was great. That was awesome. That's going to make more people want to share because you're appreciating them. And so the one tip that I think I have, and it's going to come with time, is just the organization of your thoughts. So, just that and I'm tempted to do this too. Sometimes if I forgot something, be like, oh, wait a minute, I forgot this. Let me go back. Oh my gosh, but I think it confuses the coaches. And so maybe after you've gone through the whole thing, like all of the routes, and you're like, oh crap, I forgot fierce and friendly. You might want to just use that in the language, so think about it, coaches. Which one do you struggle with the most? Do you think opponents of as fierce and friendly? Like, you don't have to even make it sound like you've missed it. Okay. Just kind of off like, we think of opponents as fierce but friendly. Do you think that way? So I just think that'll help you than feeling like, I missed this, I skipped that. And even when you talked about the fun fact about the white oak from Texas, I mean, that was definitely, I know it's something you wanted to put in the beginning. I think it was kind of fun that you threw it in when you did, but just having your thoughts organized as you do this more and more is going to just make it all that much better. So I thought you did a great job. The other thing, I asked you for the game because I wanted to see what you were doing to get the coaches up and moving around. So I like, if you're going to do that, own it. You're like, do it. Have it thought through, have it in your mind. How are you going to do it? I don't know that I would necessarily throw in a game like that in the middle of, maybe do it in the beginning to help.
Okay. Get them moving around.
Yeah. But if you kind of throw it into your explanation of all of them, it might get a little bit confusing. Okay. Maybe not if I really see how you do it, but just to think through that. Okay. And then the only other thing is, so Roots Honoring the Game is over right after the Julie Foudy video. Or actually, this is the Honoring the Game toolkit. So this is where the Honoring the Game principle's over. Okay. And the whole finishing up of the workshop, the end of the workshop is culture creation, which is kind of taking all of these things, all the principles that we've done into mind. And then the Julie Foudy video. Again, it's all Honoring the Game, creating a culture. So when we get to the takeaways, these you use this as takeaways from the Julie Foudy video, which is fine. But these takeaways are supposed to be kind of the wrap up for the whole entire workshop.
That makes sense.
Because the connected, the improving, and the integrity were how we said athletes have a positive sports experience. So this is saying, okay, these are the takeaways from this workshop. When we talked about emotional tanks, we talked about athletes being connected. When we talked about, do we believe the athletes can improve? One of the tools we talked about was rewarding unsuccessful effort. That's how you can send a clear signal. So you use this for Honoring the Game, and I just wanted to explain that this is kind of the wrap up for the whole shebang. And then this one, when this one comes up, these are basically a quick summary of all the tools for the whole workshop. So, this is kind of a review as well. Before they walk out the door, we talked about a lot today. There was a lot of information, a lot of tools. If you can see in yellow, it says which tools would help your team the most. I like the way you got them into groups, but when you got them into groups, you said, which principle, E-Tank, Elm Tree of Mastery, or Honoring the Game, do you struggle with the most? And flip it. I would just flip it and say, just ask the question that's on here. Get into groups of 3, and I want you to share from everything you heard at this workshop, which tools up here, or maybe tools that aren't up here, will you use with your team, and how will you use them? I mean, that's a great end to a workshop. That's a great solid ending. Awesome. They're going to remember it. They're going to be talking about what they just did. So I thought that was fantastic. I would just stick to the question that's here rather than kind of making up. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think, the rest of it, you did the book. The book was great. I actually heard a trainer yesterday say, yeah, this book is priceless. So priceless that you didn't even have to pay for it. That was funny.
I like that.
We don't make the coaches. But they did say that, your organization cares about you enough that they purchased a book for each one of you. And they made it sound like it really was like a special gift that the organization bought for the coaches. And I thought that was a neat way to
I like that, yes.
And then the talking points email comes for about 10 weeks. Just a detail to say that when they sign into this workshop, they're going to get it for about 10 weeks. And then the development zone slide, I think you kind of skimmed over it quickly, but I think it's really important to tell the coaches that, we are a partnership. We're here to help you. And we've got an online resource center that is unbelievable.
Awesome.
And any issue, challenge, anything you have, if you want to put a YouTube video of a professional coach and click it right into your parent newsletters, we have it there for you. So again, it's a great way to just get your resources at your fingertips. And then that's it. I think you did really well, Shay. I'm excited to see you get out there in front of live people instead of in front of a screen.
Thank you. Thank you. You guys have been awesome.
Oh. Absolutely. Take a breath.
Eric, I'm sending you positive vibes, dude. You got this.
Thank you.
He's ready. You ready?
Ready. He's ready. I think it's fun for you guys too. I love having other people. I think it's good when other people going through the course or on these demos together, because you can see we've got so many different styles of trainers and there's so many different ways to do it. So I think you guys have different styles and you're both really strong. So I think it's cool that you get to see each other.
Absolutely. That was pretty cool to have him on. That's I love it. Thank you.
That's great. What part are you going to be doing, Eric?
I am going to do the second principle, the Elm Tree of Mastery.
Okay, and you have it pulled up right there, right?
Yeah, I did last time. I've just got it on my little iPad here, so I'll use the slides on my iPad, and then I've got the Google Hangout going on up here.
Okay, so I'll just follow along.
If you see me look down, that's me just switching slides on my computer so that I can go through it.
That's fine. So you're doing Elm Tree of Mastery?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll just have it playing along so that people know where we are.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
And I'm not going to intro. I can just go right into it.
Yeah, I think it'd be great to do a quick intro though, for the sake of Shay and Joe and whoever else is on.
Okay. Perfect. Well, my name's Eric Schlie. I'm a PCA trainer, and I'll be leading this workshop today. I have coached for roughly 10 years, mostly in the sport of hockey, and I've spent 2 years as a youth director for a hockey program. And I'm part of PCA, and I'll tell you a little bit about my aha moment. And I think a lot of coaches have this as they go, but my aha moment and why I'm a positive, or why I say I'm a positive coach and part of this PCA movement, is that we played a game, a team I coached played a game of 12-year-olds, played a game on a Friday, and it was a bad game. We didn't perform up to what I believed we could perform to. And so in the locker room afterwards, I told the players, hey, I want you to spend a little bit of time over the weekend thinking about what we could have improved and the things we could have done. And we had practice on that Tuesday, the following Tuesday, and we got back as a group together, and I started to ask some of the kids, things about the game, and tell me areas we can improve in, or tell me some positives that you think that happened during the game. And as an adult, my mind, or what I was focused on, was, okay, they're going to talk about how we lost 5-1, and they're going to talk about how we didn't make passes and how we failed to accomplish, some of our goals. And in actuality, they talked about, plays that their teammates made that made them excited. They talked about passion. They talked about a funny moment in the game. And I actually asked the players, I said, does anybody know what the actual score of the game was? And the kids could not tell me. I mean, they knew we lost, and they knew that we didn't play to our potential, but none of the kids could tell me what the exact score of the game was. And I just had this aha moment, like, for these 12-year-olds and where they're at, it did not matter to them the score. It mattered to them how they felt about themselves afterwards, and the relationships they created, and that how that intertwined with who they were as individuals. And so that's why I'm here. That's why I coach. That's why I love what I do, and it naturally lends itself to PCA and the movement that it has become. So that's a little bit of background about me. But today I'm really excited to talk with you about our second principle, which is the Elm Tree of Mastery. I think all the principles involve a level of psychology. But for me, this one really integrates sports psychology in a way that I love. I love the idea of learning theory and how that incorporates into psychology. So I'm really excited to discuss this concept with you. Firstly, I do want to play a quick video by a psychologist at Stanford University, Carol Dweck. It's called Praising Effort Over Talent. I'll let that play really quickly.
Yep.
Perfect. And what I just want to ask you guys, what were some key things or specific things that stood out to you during that video?
First of all, I think the last thing she said when she said that many coaches think that their players are, however she said, I think that their players know that they value practice and effort. But I was just thinking about my team that I coach, and I don't know if they would say that, you know, yeah, Coach Kratz, she's all about effort and you know, practice. I'd hope they would, but I don't know if she asked them, I don't know what they'd say.
Yeah, I think that was incredibly important. I completely agree. Thank you for sharing, Kelly. Anybody else?
Also, I agree with that. I think that as I coach my youth, trying to make sure that I'm intentional about praising effort and making sure that it is a part of my language has been. So when she said making sure that effort is just, we think that we're talking about effort, but a lot of times we talk about talent and I make sure that I am really speaking effort language. And I think it's a little bit easier sometimes when you know you're dealing with players that are more inexperienced. So I really enjoy her video about effort versus just talent.
Yeah, the word that you just said that really struck out to me was intentional and purposeful, right? If you're not intentional about it, it's easy to praise talent because you see a goal scored and it's easy to reward that, but you're right, you have to be intentional and purposeful. And so I think you guys nailed it. The other part that really sticks out to me, and it's a theme that I talk about through PCA, we want our players to perform better. That's really the bottom line. And so I think it's important. Dr. Dweck stated that praising value over effort, effort over the results of the game is actually going to lead to better results for your team. And so I think that's incredibly important to keep in mind because, again, we're coaches. We do want to, understand or have our players understand the importance of winning, and coaching this way will get us there. So we talked a little bit about meaningful athlete experience earlier, and we talked about how do athletes truly believe they can get better. So you guys, pulled that out from the Dweck video, but tell them that you do. You specifically let them know, hey, I value, as a coach, I value effort more than I do talent. And that's a huge concept to get across. Become a noticer of effort. Just like Shay mentioned, it takes a lot of effort. It really does, because we're so ingrained in seeing something happen that's reward or talent driven, and it's easy to praise that. But you have to take a step back and find those little moments where you can still give praise to a player when the results didn't reflect the best possible outcome for them, but they still gave the best possible effort to achieve those results. And attribute your successes to effort. After the game, I always talk to my players specifically about it was our effort that got us there. And one thing I really encourage with my players, and I always talk about, is I say, are we process-oriented or are we results-oriented? And if you are process-oriented and focused on the task at hand, you will end up being more successful. And it's backed by research. And again, I think that's the most important thing from my perspective, is that research backs this up. So what does it look like to be a noticer of effort? What are some things that you have said to your players in the past, if you would mind offering it up, where you did notice effort, even though the task or outcome wasn't the completely desired outcome?
One of the things in my sport, I coach lacrosse, and we want them to get low on the ground balls. Mm-hmm. So I always tell them I want to see their dirty knuckles, because I want their knuckles to drag along the track. So like, are terrible at picking up ground balls. I constantly am like, let me see those hands. Let me see. Oh, look at your knuckles. Your knuckles are brown and green. And like, they're dirty knuckles. And I say, if your hands are dirty by the end of the practice, you've done a good job.
Yeah. I think as a basketball coach, one of the things I love to see is someone a change of direction, which they're trying to do a crossover or between the legs, not the fancy type, but also trying to make a left hand layup if they're right-handed. I always praise the effort, because that's the only way they're going to be able to get better with it, is doing it in live action. And so I always make an effort. And also I just love hustle. Effort, just hustle. And I'm always yelling about and praising them for hustle. It doesn't take you to be the most talented to out hustle anybody. So I love that. So I really try to make sure that everyone, not only do I say it, but their teammates. If I say it enough, the teammates have kind of picked it up, and they all begin to kind of not only to emulate each other, but also to say it. You know, great hustle. So I really like that. So I really try to make that effort of saying that.
Oh, I agree. Hard work. I always preach to my players. Hard work beats talent all the time.
Yes, yes.
So thanks for sharing. So moving on here to the Elm Tree of Mastery, and before I kind of brought it up, and I talk about it process-oriented or results-driven. The way we talk about it here at PCA is: are you defining your success by the scoreboard, or are you defining your success in a mastery, a concept of mastery? So let's compare the two ideas here and how that contributes to your overall success as a team. So a scoreboard definition is you're focused on the results, right? Did we win or lose? You're always comparing yourself to others. And I think that's a really interesting one when you're comparing yourself to others in terms of competing. I always tell my players, if you're looking across the aisle at the other team and your only goal is to beat them and how we faced against them, what happens when you beat them? Where do you go from there? Because if your only goal is to compete and compare with the other team, then you'll have achieved that goal at some point, and then there's no more ceiling. You have reached it. Instead of almost competing within yourselves to consistently be the best team you can, I always encourage my players to compare our performance with our past performances and see if we're beating the best that we've ever done. And then the scoreboard definition also introduces the idea that mistakes are not okay, that it's not okay to have those learning moments where you may fail in the moment and then learn from it. The mastery definition, however, discusses the idea of effort at all costs. It also emphasizes the idea of lifelong learning, which is something I love as a previous teacher. And then the idea that mistakes are okay, that mistakes are a natural part of learning. So we can conclude with the Elm Tree of Mastery that we know from research that in a mastery climate, anxiety goes down and self-confidence goes up. That's because you get to control things within that environment when you're in a mastery environment, and you really focus on, again, it's almost like Buddhist principles, sort of. I don't know if you've done any studies on that, but that's another area where it kind of links into psychology, but focusing on the task at hand, not worrying about the future or worrying about what happened before, but worrying about that right now. And that helps your players achieve peak performance because they're only going to be focused on that task. And again, I always relate back to it, but it's based in research. This isn't just me, coming up with feel-good stuff. This is important stuff that's been researched over the last 25 years. So I touched on that idea a little bit on that past slide, but we talked about that mastery environment gives your players a feeling of control. And a phrase I use with my team is control the controllables. So what are some things, suggest to me some things, if you would, what are out of our players' control that we have cannot have any influence over?
The weather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a bad call.
Absolutely.
Who the referees are?
The what? Sorry, I couldn't hear you on that last one.
Who the referees are?
Yeah.
Who they are. Yeah, some have a grudge. You're just going to stick it out. Yeah. I agree. Those are things, and I always tell my players, the things you can control are your effort and your attitude and your energy level. Outside of that, you can't control, what if the game before us went over in time? What if your pregame routine had a hitch in it? There's things you can't control, and part of having success as an athlete is adapting to that adversity. And putting your players in that mastery environment is going to give them that understanding that they have control over, the things that are going to help them succeed in a game. And it puts their focus on those things in a really positive way. And it's important to note, I can't recall if this was in the Dweck video, but she actually states some research, and I don't want to go too deep into it, but there's this idea that they did a study and they gave kids tests, and beforehand, right, they talked about the idea of with two different groups. So they split the group up. They talked with one about how they praised one group for being talented, and then they praised the other group for being hard workers. And what they found is that the students who were given the test and told that they were hard workers actually worked harder and stuck to it longer. And after that test had completed, they were actually more willing to try more challenging things. And that's how you continually work with your players on improvement. Albert Bandura, who's also a psychologist, did another study and basically talked about the higher self-confidence. Players with higher self-confidence are going to work harder and stick to the task, just like Dweck's study confirmed as well. So let's spend a minute and take a look at another quick scenario. So your team, and this is kind of what we call a tentative play scenario, your team tends to play tentatively and lets the opponent drive the action or control the pace of play. What are some things you might be able to do as a coach in order to get your team back on track?
I think one of the things I'm going to try to do more of is recognize their effort. not necessarily like I have a habit of saying, well, I know you guys were down by 2 goals, but you're working really hard. Like I never thought about not mentioning the score at all and just focusing on their effort, not even thinking about what the score of the game is. I just didn't care. So.
I love the idea of introducing more effort and praising players for it. I agree.
I think I would do is break down the plays a little bit, kind of break the game down to smaller segments, meaning that for the next, in the next quarter, we're just going to focus on passing the ball and hustling to make sure everybody's past half court and just kind of build them up from a smaller skill set. Little things, and then they kind of get, to me, it works a little bit with the lesser experience when they don't get so intimidated and looking at the other team and hesitant. So I try to take off the big chunks and just kind of slowly, gradually give them something that they can be proud of and confident in. And then mainly it's a built-in effort and kind of get them going from that point. And after a while, they don't look at them as giants anymore. So they start kind of playing a little bit harder and not as afraid.
Yeah, I think that concept is brilliant. That's something I've tried to incorporate as well, breaking the game down. I think about it kind of like if your team or your goal was to climb a mountain, you wouldn't necessarily be looking at the peak the entire time because that would be intimidating. You would say, okay, I'm going to get to here and break it down from there. And then when I get there, now I'm going to pick out that next point to achieve. And so I agree, breaking down the game in a way that your kids can just focus on that simple task, I think is important. So a few takeaways as we move to talking about our toolkit. I think it's really important that we understand the concept, but I almost think it's more important that you guys leave this workshop with actual tools that you can use because, the understanding and knowing the rationale behind why we're doing what we're doing is absolutely important, but you have to be able to apply it as a coach. And so that's part of what I want to spend a good moment talking about here. We talked about kind of becoming a noticer, and I asked you guys for some examples about how you get your teams to do that and the things you praise. You can find that within the book as well and read a little bit more about it. So I know we went over that. The toolkit, we also talked a little bit briefly about rewarding effort, especially if it's unsuccessful. And you can find that on page 27. Really quickly, just to kind of refresh our memories, what are some other ways that you have highlighted a player, whether it was during the play or maybe after a game, that you let your players know through your actions that you were rewarding a unsuccessful effort, but praising the effort itself?
A couple of times I've given, actually on a number of occasions, I don't necessarily in basketball give the game balls to, I usually give out about 3 to 4 balls. I don't necessarily give the game ball to the one who scored the most points. It's always someone who hustled or who dove for balls, who made passes where they really could have shot the ball, but they set up a teammate. So I kind of make sure that the game balls are strategic and encouraging. So it's the ones that really don't think that they're the best ones, but they've given it their all. And I try to give it specific. I try to name specific things that they did.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to do it.
The one thing that I always get impressed by, my daughters are swimmers, and the one thing that always impresses me is how well the swim coaches do at rewarding effort, because only one person wins the race. So basically the other 5 are unsuccessful in terms of, winning. And so the swim coaches are always really good at pointing out exactly what they're doing well, like nice streamline or great strong kick, or I love, the amount of reps your arms are doing, or I like the way you came in aggressive to that wall. And it's all about effort because there's only one winner. So I thought that was good.
Yeah, no, I think that's an interesting, in some sports, right? As a team, you have one loser, one winner. And I've honestly never thought about like that in some sports, like track and swimming. You're right. There is only one clear winner. And then whoever else wasn't at the top of the podium is the loser in that case. And so you're right. You have to find a way to encourage those players to come back and want to excel and be passionate. Just to take it a step further, because I always think this is interesting and I kind of want to learn from you guys. First of all, I'll ask you a question. Do you guys set goals for your teams for games or for practices? And if so, do you have goals that specifically focus on the idea of rewarding an effort? And if you wouldn't mind sharing those, again, I always like to learn from the coaches that we have here at our workshops.
Well, I'll start. Many times I start when they walk in the gym, mainly, especially with my younger ones, my 8 and under boys and girls. I begin with, have they done their homework, and have they did they obey a parent's what they asked them, required them to do. And that usually sets the tone. They usually get something for that if they have done it. And then we go into the court. If they made practice on time and they are cheering their teammates on, that they get things for that. And it's sincere, and they're really pointing out what the person is doing well. And then for them, it's also effort. So I start when they first come in. One of the things I ask them, have they finished their homework, and have they done what their parents have asked them to do? Have they done their chores? So they kind of come in knowing that that's going to be a question, so they're already ready, so they can get a prize. They all want a prize at 8 and under.
Yeah, better have done your chores before coming to practice.
Bribery works.
No doubt. A little piece of candy goes a long way. Yep, I agree with that. And so the last principle I do want to discuss here is the mistake ritual. And again, you can find that on page 23. We talked about that mastery environment, providing an area where kids know that it's okay to make mistakes. You have to help them learn. That's part of the process. It's important to note that doesn't mean we're not correcting mistakes or helping kids find, what the correct play should have been. That just means that they're not fearful of the retribution, that we're not criticizing them for the mistakes, that we're treating it as a learning moment as well. Along with that idea of mistake ritual, we have a really great video from Curtis Granderson, who's a Major League Baseball player for the New York Mets, where he talks about the flush it mistake ritual that he uses. And yeah, perfect. And just to highlight that on, some of the things that I've done or things that I've liked, that I've read, some coaches have, worked on holding a balloon, squeezing their fist, and then letting that balloon go. And by the time, the balloon flies away, that thought is out. One of my favorite things is a goaltender in the NHL by the name of Braden Holtby. He has a water bottle on the back of his net, and his mistake ritual, and really he calls it his reset ritual, is that after every play or every goal scored against him, he squirts his water bottle into the air, and he picks out one droplet and he watches it as it falls to the ice. And as that's happening, he tells himself mentally, when this droplet hits the ice, I will have forgotten about that last play and I will have moved on. So that's something that he uses, and one thing that I've tried to incorporate to my players as well. So with that, that is the second principle of the Elm Tree of honoring the game. And thank you for your participation. I appreciate your time.
All right. Thanks, Eric.
Nice.
Who is that player that does that?
It's Braden Holtby from the Washington Capitals.
Oh, okay.
I've got a couple videos of it just because I show my players, which I might incorporate into a
yeah. We have a couple videos. We have a PCA trainer share folder, and we have videos that you're allowed to put into your workshops. And we have some of baseball players picking up the dirt and letting it go. Like we have a couple different examples. Julie Foudy snapping a elastic on her wrist to snap out of it. But that's a good one. I hadn't heard of that one before. All right. How'd you feel going through that principle?
It was good. Felt a little clunky at times again because, like I was talking about with Shay, just making sure that you know the slide that's coming next and you know how to lead into it in a smooth way. And you have so many thoughts from the book and the slides going on at the same time, and you want to just hit on those key points. So I think that's an area I can always work at cleaning up.
Yeah. Exactly. One of the things that's a simple trick, and I don't know if you have this capability, but on my computer, your computer probably too, in PowerPoint, you can put it on presenter view. And when you have it on presenter view, you can see the slide that comes next. Okay. And it took me like 2 years of doing this before somebody actually showed me that. And I was like, oh, that's genius. So it's got the slide that's up and then the slide that comes next. So you can see what's coming and you can do an awesome lead in. Because I used to just put little cheat sheet, little notes down at the bottom corner of the slide that said JF next. So I could lead in and say, next we're going to see a video from Julie Foudy. Click, there's Julie Foudy. So, but presenter view for the slideshow is definitely a plus. And it's got a clock on it. So it tells you, I don't know if PCs and Macs both do that, but my Mac does it. So it's very cool.
I'll certainly look
All right. Joe, are you available for comment? Maybe not. All right. If not, I'm going to let you hear from Shay. So Shay.
Wait, I think I got it. Are you there? Did I lose you yet? Is it working?
Yes.
Okay.
You're there.
I'm sorry. It's been. Ask Daryl Johnson about my phone yesterday. We had a 4-hour phone call, or 20-minute phone call. It took 4 hours. Great job. I mean, good stuff. And I really like the. I love the examples you've pulled. And the reasons you've pulled them. It makes a lot of sense. I think all of us, the one sort of major note that I'd give, or if I was to pick one big wish, is, and I work again better at this all the time too, is keeping this a conversation in which the participants' views and ideas actually take precedence, sometimes even over ours. And they'll trend, not over ours, that's not a fair way to say it, but they tend to be in line with what we do, and they tend to be things that you can, their examples are more powerful than ours because they're theirs. And you do that. I think for me, I'm always working for more and more and more of that. And the phrase I use a lot is to give the workshop back to the participants. It's scarier because, if they say something that is contrary to what you believe or what we say or in the principles, then we have a great conversation. But the beauty is then we have a great conversation. This is an emotional connection business and a relationship business more than it is a content business. And the more you involve them in saying, hey, you guys are great coaches, and honoring their expertise as coaches, the more they connect to the doing of what we say. And the thing I pitch all the time is we're not here really to present ideas. We're here to affect behavior. And that puts us in a very different light as educators, than maybe if you were teaching a math class. And I know you're not teaching a math class, but that'd be my one thing. You did great.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Joe.
Yep.
Shay,
Glad it
how
worked.
are you? What do you think about what stuck with you about what Eric did, or what did you like? And then do you have a wish or a suggestion for him moving forward?
Oh, it was a number of things I liked, Eric, about it. One of the things I really did, you really emphasized the research based. I thought that was excellent. That was one of the things I missed in mine. I didn't say enough about research based from experts. I was taking notes of your thing, so I like your aha moment, and we think a lot alike about different things. I thought how you did the becoming a noticer was really good. You allowing us to speak about that, and your mistake ritual with Braden was really good. I don't have really anything to say about what I would wish you would do. I just think that your information was on point. So yeah, good, great job.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Shay. I agree. I really like the aha moment starting off first. I think that's a real big wake up for some coaches, especially if you're in front of youth coaches, about how our agenda is not always the same as the kids' agenda. And I think that's great. And I remember I even asked we had like a little party at the end of the season, and I asked my team this year, they're 11 and 12-year-olds, what their favorite game of the season was. And they said it was a game that we played. The weather was perfect. This mom brought like the best Rita's water ice that she could find. It was like watermelon, water ice. And after the game, like they ran around in circles and did cartwheels, and like we got crushed. We lost like 5-1. And they all said that was their favorite game of the season. And I remember thinking, man, they don't care. I cared. I was like, man, I can't believe we lost by 4 goals. But that was their favorite game of the season because of Rita's water ice, and they got to do cartwheels on the field after the game. So anyway, I thought good point to bring up. I like Eric. I like your language. I just like your demeanor. You're very relaxed and very conversational, and I think you have a good balance of being an expert in the room, but also being humble. And so I like the way you kind of worked in some of your own personal experiences. Also, I took notes as well. I took a lot of things. One of the things I like the best is when you just talked about, how praising effort is going to lead to performance. I think sometimes as trainers, we get really caught up in like the principle, and we want athletes to perform better. And so I like that, how you work that in. I also like the way when you talked about having us give examples of what effort looks like, because a lot of us say we want max effort, but until a coach can articulate or explain, a lot of kids don't know what max effort looks like. So if you can have coaches at a workshop, I love when you get coaches at a workshop to actually do the thing that you want them to do. Act out the principle, role play, try this, get with a partner, speak about this. Because if they practice it in a workshop, they're going to feel comfortable bringing it to their team. Where if they just hear about it at the workshop, they're not going to understand how to do it. So I like that idea. And also the idea of comparing with others. I like the analogy that you said, like if your only goal is to beat that team, where are you going to go when you play the next team and the next team? I thought that was a great one. What else did I like? I liked the study, like mentioning the study of Carol Dweck. That's something that we used to do a lot more of back, like the other version of the workshops. But Jim Thompson does a lot of that when he's doing workshops. He'll quote the studies. And it's interesting. I think it's really interesting because you can actually see where the research came from. It's not just saying, oh, based on research, we think this is a good principle. It's telling you this is what the research found, and translate that to your own coaching. So I like that as well. I appreciate that too. The one thing I would ask is that you look for more opportunities for us to share as a group, or small group, or partner sharing, things like that. I know in this format, it's kind of funky, but I think that's something that coaches really appreciate doing, because frankly, they don't get much of a chance to talk to other coaches and get to know other coaches that are coaching in the same league that they are. So it helps the connection and the camaraderie between coaches. And it also helps them kind of chew on these ideas a little bit more. So I would definitely look for group opportunities as much as you can, or group sharing. Let me see what else I had. Wordsmithing, pick on. You said that the last principle is a mistake ritual. Just the difference between a principle and a tool. Oh. So that's okay. You'll pick on the emotional tank, elm tree of mastery, and honoring the game are the principles, and then the difference in the tools. It was just a word flub, no big deal. Okay. And again, bringing in any current examples you can bring in. I loved that the Braden. I think that's great to bring in an example of what an actual professional athlete does using one of our tools. And they don't, he probably doesn't call it a mistake ritual, but I think that's an awesome opportunity, especially if you're workshop for the sport. You know, you're doing an ice hockey workshop, bring in an ice hockey example. I'm constantly like watching ESPN, or I'm going on ESPN before I do a workshop, and I'm trying to find examples of professional athletes out there so that you can share them in workshops. And gosh, look at where Steve Kerr really was praising Steph Curry for his effort here. You know, it's just really cool to be able to bring up examples like that for the workshop. So I like how you did that too. I'm excited to have you go out and do this for Ruben and the crew live, Eric. I think you're really going to come alive. It's exciting.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Shay, as well. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Absolutely.
Great job.
Absolutely.
Hey, you know, one other thing I was going to say about that too, once you're in the flow of this, just so you know, give me a shout. I do a ton of hockey stuff, and we have just a trove of video from particularly Brad Frost at University of Minnesota women's hockey coach, fantastic, and Jerry York, who's insanely good at Boston College, and some stuff from Claude Julien. So there's some real good stuff if you're doing a lot of hockey stuff.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe.
Yep.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks you guys very much.
By the way, wait, I want to say this. I'm on NHL.com today. Just saying. You're not, and I am. Sorry.
So I go on NHL.com. You're going to be on?
Yeah, Casey sent an email about it, by the way. Just look at Casey's email.
I didn't see it. You are cool.
I'm the coolest one here, so I'm just saying.
All right, I'm going to have to check that out, Joe. Make sure you're on it. Hey,
okay,
I made the CBS local news on Saturday night for doing an inflatable 5K for breast cancer. Doesn't that count for something?
Oh, there you go.
NHL.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did they say it was a PCA? Good. Nice.
Thanks, you guys, very much for your efforts. And Shay, this is your final, so our next step is to get you out and help you and have you do this live. So I will
Rockstar
give you all the details about that.
All right.
And Eric, look forward to hearing how you do out in out.
Thank you.
21st. Let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. Yes. I'll send you the link to this too, so you can watch.